Well, that's the interesting thing there. You talk about the energy, and it's clear that that's where the energy is. And I'm curious about this because now Mamdani has gotten the attention of the White House. Here's Border Czar Tom Homan. He's talking about Mamdani's anti-ICE enforcement policies. Have a look at this.
Good luck with that. Federal law trumps him every day, every hour, every minute. We're going to be in New York City. Matter of fact, because it's a sanctuary city, President Trump made it clear a week and a half ago. We're going to double down and triple down on sanctuary cities. If we can't arrest a bad guy in a county jail, one agent arresting one bad guy, they release him in the streets like New York does every day. We got to send a whole team to look for this guy.
Now, on a legal point, Mick, Homan is absolutely right, but my concern is that if the White House is now starting to give attention to this guy and start to fight with him, does that give Mamdani and his wing of the party even more energy because, hey, they've got the attention of the Trump administration?
Maybe, but look, sometimes the legal part is more important than the political. I think what you just heard Tom Homan say was not a political statement. What he said was a legal statement, which is it's against the law for cities to say they're not going to cooperate with the federal government on certain issues, and immigration is one of those issues. And they're simply sort of to heck with the politics. We're going to go enforce the law. By the way, that's about a 65 or 70% issue when you focus on things like deporting criminals and so forth. So it is good politics. Will it help the extreme left wing of the party? Will it energize them even more? Maybe. But will it also might bring some centrist voters that look their hands over and say, look, as a choice between an administration that's enforcing the law and a crazy group of people over here on the left, maybe I'm going to go over and vote for these Republicans for a change. It could have major, major implications politically if this becomes the face of the Democrat Party. And right now, for the last 48 hours, it has been.
Absolutely fascinating. Hey, speaking of crazy ideas, I want to talk to you about this big, beautiful bill act here, and particularly something that people probably aren't cued into, the fact that there's somebody called the Senate parliamentarian who's an unelected official, but apparently has made all sorts of rulings about what the bill can and cannot do, including restricting benefits to illegal migrants and, restricting funds to go to puberty blockers for transgender teens and all of that sort of things. Tell us about this obscure figure, and does this seem to suggest that really, in fact, there is this kind of anti-democratic push against the Trump agenda because this person's not elected?
All right, James, let's get real deep in the weeds. So they're trying to pass the one beautiful bill on what's called Senate budget reconciliation. That is an arcane piece of Senate rule making. The Senate rule keeper is called the parliamentarian, and she is supposed to be the nonpartisan sort of person who looks at the Senate rules and calls balls and strikes, X's and Y's, whatever you want to call it, whatever analogy you want to have. That being said, she was appointed by, what's his name from Las Vegas years ago, Harry Reid. So she does have a Democrat pedigree, and she has ruled against Donald Trump and Republicans more than she has Democrats in the past. She is not elected. She is appointed by the Senate, and she's coming under the Republican leadership is coming under a great deal of pressure to do what we could do in the House. We had a parliamentarian in the House when I was there, and if the majority didn't like the decision of the parliamentarian, we could overrule the parliamentarian. At the end of the day, the elected officials do have the last say. Is the Senate hiding behind the parliamentarian? Is the Senate asking sort of the parliamentarian or letting her make all the hard decisions so they don't have to vote on unpopular things like cutting spending on Medicaid? That's open for discussion. All of that being said, this is not over yet. The Republicans in the Senate are telegraphing that they're going to try and change the language to satisfy the parliamentarian so it meets the rules of the Senate so that they can proceed with the bill as originally drafted. So while all the discussion is fascinating to people who are really geeky like you and me when it comes to the way the government works, it's not over yet. We don't know how this ends.
Fascinating, Mick. Well, we're going to keep a very close eye on it. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, James.